Now, the average individual has no understanding of what a paradigm is. I'm going to show you here today. I want you to pay very close attention, and I want you to relate all this good information you get in your brain to inspiration, because that's where you're getting it. Now, you've got to make a decision. You've got to make a decision about exactly how you want to live and what you want to do. And most people never learn how to make a decision. A man told me that one day, and he wrote an R on a sheet of paper. Then he put 3 letters down beside it, 2 H's and a W. And he said, Bob, that represents happiness, health, and wealth. And he said, do you know you can have anything you want? And he said, do you think I'm a happy person? And I had to say, yes, I think you are. He said, have you ever seen me sick? I had to admit I hadn't. He said, have you ever seen me when I was broke? Again, I had to admit I hadn't. Well, he said, Bob, you've got to be one of the most miserable people I've ever met. He said, you're always sick and you're always broke. Now, he was actually being kind. I was 26 years old. I was earning $4,000 a year, and I owed $6,000. And he said, do you ever read anything? And I said, no, I can't read. Now, that wasn't true. I could. I just didn't. And he introduced me to this book. And this is it, right here. This is the book. Pages are falling out of this. I've been reading this since October the 21st, 1961. And I read it every day. I have it right here beside me in my studio. Now, I said, Bob, if you will do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. That was a long time ago. I'm going to tell you, if you'll do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Do you know that in a matter of a year, my income went from $4,000, $6,000 in whole, to I was earning $175,000. Now, I want you to stop for a minute and do the math on that, because it's pretty interesting. In 1 year, I had multiplied my income by 43.75 times. Now, let me qualify that. I had 2 months high school. I had no business experience. I had a bad attitude, and I had a bad work record. But I got this book, and then I did what someone told me. For the first time in my life, I never had really followed direction. I was 26. And a man said, do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. So I decided I would. And I've been doing that ever since. I learned a great lesson. I learned if you want to do something, go to someone who has already done it, and then do exactly what they tell you. Ask them if they would help you get the results they're getting. And they will say yes, and then you got to do exactly what they tell you. Now, I've had 7 mentors, but the first one got me on the right track. I've always done exactly what each one of them told me. Now, I'm going to suggest that if I can do that, you can certainly do this. I want to suggest that you turn your annual income into a monthly income. Now, that's only multiplying by 12. I multiplied it by 43.75, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have the help that you're getting right now. You can do it. And then I took it over $1 million. That was the big magic number, 1 to earn $1 million. Well, I earned 1. I've earned many millions. You know something? If I can, you can. You see, that's what makes me so adamant about this. I know if I did it, anybody can do it. So let's go ahead here. What I learned? Well, let's take a look at the mind and at paradigms. We talked about paradigms. Let's take a look at them. Now, pay attention to this because it's very important. This is one of the key things I learned. In 1934, Dr. Truman Fleet down in San Antonio, Texas, he was very involved in the healing arts, and he said, we have a problem in the world. We are treating symptoms. We're not treating the cause of the problem. Now, there's always a cause and effect relationship. When you have a disease in the body, that's an effect. What is the cause of it? And he said the cause always starts in the non-physical, so it had to start in the mind. And he said the problem is nobody's ever seen the mind. Nobody's ever seen it. So how do we work on it? And he said, I'm going to draw a picture of the mind. And that's what he drew, right there. And he said, let the mind fall into 2 parts. The large circle represents the mind. We'll say the conscious, and the bottom circle is the subconscious. But the physical instrument that carries out the operations of the mind is the body. Now, I pointed out here, this is the most valuable idea I've ever learned. And I'm going to tell you, I'm surrounded by books. I have a magnificent library that I have built over the past 50-some years. This is the best idea I've ever got. So I'm going to show you something about it. There's the mind, the conscious mind, subconscious in the body. Now, the conscious mind is your thinking mind. You can think. Do Do you know not many people do? You say, oh, everybody thinks. Start listening to the conversations that are going on around you. It's going to become very evident that the people are not thinking, or they wouldn't say what they're saying. Watch what they're doing. They'd never do what they're doing if they were thinking. Conscious mind's a thinking mind. This is the educated mind. This is where we pile the books up. And I'm going to show you something about that. This is where our intellect is resident. Okay? This is the intellectual mind. Now, the subconscious operates quite different. That's your emotional mind. Okay? Now, because you can think and you have an intellect, you have the ability to choose. You can choose what you're going to do with your life. Now, you've got the ability to accept or reject information. And if you reject information, you've got the ability to originate. Subconscious mind doesn't have that ability. That's all in the conscious mind. The subconscious mind must accept whatever you give to it. See, the subconscious mind is immoral. It's like the earth. It doesn't care what you plant, but it'll return what you plant. I love the way Earl Nightingale put it. He said, you can plant corn, a sweet food, and not a 16th of an inch away, plant nightshade, a deadly poison. One will grow up with just as great an abundance as the other. You can plant the positive or the negative, they'll both grow. Because the subconscious must accept it, and that's where it grows. Subconscious can't reject. Now get this is beautiful when you understand it. The subconscious mind cannot differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. It is not able to tell the difference. Okay, now that is facts about this. Let's look at where it all starts. Okay? Here you are now. Remember what I've just shown you. Information is flowing into your conscious mind from the radio, from other people, from TV, newspapers. And a lot of it is absolute nonsense. They're telling you stuff that isn't even true. But they keep telling you, and we keep listening. And then we let them influence us. The economy's going down. Do you know in the worst economy, there's people winning? In the best economy, there's people losing. You create your own economy. We've got the ability to reject all this negative information, but you know something? We don't do that. Do you know why we can? Because we can think, we can reason. And with reason, we think. Reason's a mental faculty. So we could say to that information, get out of here, just go away. But we don't do that. What do we do? Well, we do something much worse. We leave our mind wide open. What do we say about the subconscious? It has no ability to reject. All that information is going right into the subconscious mind and affecting the instrument you're living in called the body. Why do we do that? Well, we do it because we're programmed to do it. That's what a paradigm is.
Your body is your unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion that you can create by thought alone. So if you're living by the same emotion every single day and those emotions are influencing your thoughts, and you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, you're thinking in the past. Your lens of the future is going to be colored by the past, so you can't see possibilities. So most people like to wait for crisis or disease or diagnosis before they wake up enough to see. Well, the challenge is that biology tends to be redundant. So if you keep thinking the same thoughts, and those thoughts begin to fire certain circuits in your brain, the nerve cells that fire together wire together, so all of a sudden you start getting hardwired, and those are the thoughts that you can think the easiest. At the same time, those thoughts produce chemicals called emotions, and the next thing you know, your body gets accustomed to living by the same emotions, and it could be guilt, it could be unhappiness, it could be pain, but at least it's familiar to you, at least you can predict it. So some people would rather cling to the familiar than take a chance in possibility. So for most people then, they say, well, I don't really see how my thoughts have anything to do with my destiny. Well, that's because most people, though, when you do that, when you decide to really take a look, it's like lighting a match in a dark place. So you feel uncomfortable. So it's easier to turn on your TV, it's easier to play with your cell phone, to distract yourself from those feelings. Well, when you understand that change really requires becoming uncomfortable to a certain degree, and that's normal, that you're leaving the known and you're stepping into the unknown, then it begs the question, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? Because your attention on those thoughts begins to reorganize circuitry, remold the brain. So they can feel gratitude, to feel abundance, to feel whole. You know, that's the old model of cause and effect, you know. So if you're living with emptiness, you're living with lack, you're living with pain, most people have been conditioned that something out there has to take away this emptiness or feeling inside of them. But if you believe that you're creating your life and you're living by lack, well, lack isn't going to create abundance, right? So then it makes sense then that you don't really actually create wealth, you generate wealth, you generate abundance. So the moment you start teaching your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it's made manifest, well, your body, as the unconscious mind, believes it's living in that future in the present moment. Now, it's a scientific fact that it's the environment that signals the gene, okay? The end product from an experience in the environment is an emotion. So when you begin to embrace an elevated emotion, you're beginning to signal the gene ahead of the environment. What's the importance of that? Well, genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and the function of your body. And the expression of proteins is the expression of life. So by you creating an elevated emotion and teaching your body what that future will feel like before it's made manifest, your body's starting to live in that future reality in the present moment. Now here's the key. If you were able to become familiar with gratitude, become familiar with wholeness, become familiar with abundance, to become familiar with freedom, and you're able to generate those chemicals every single day, more than likely you would be walking around feeling like your future has already happened, and you would no longer be looking for it to happen. You would already feel like it has happened. Now, what is the importance of that? Well, you're literally becoming somebody else. So you're leaving your lack, you're leaving your guilt, you're leaving your emptiness behind.